Hey guys, Cloud here, and today we are going to be doing a quick kind of amateur Blender tutorial on how to add a little creeper like this or other Minecraft models to Blender and add a armature to them and animate that armature so that you can potentially use it in game using something like OBJMC. Just a heads up, I am not a Blender pro. I consider myself kind of an intermediate. I don't do a lot of sculpting. I mainly do this, which is why I'm willing to make a video on it, for the sake of the people working with OBJMC that are new to Blender. So I'm going to try and show you everything I know with this example of taking a creeper texture from the Minecraft files, making a model of it, UV mapping the model, then creating an armature for that model, and animating that model with the armature. If that still interests you, feel free to stick around, and hopefully we can get you up to speed with how to use Blender. So the first thing we need to do is open up Blender. I'm just going to assume you already have it downloaded. This is going to be your default scene that comes up. So what you want to do is go File, Save As, and create a new folder for it. I made a folder on my desktop called Tutorial, and then I named the file creeper.blend because that is the mob we're going to be doing. So once you save it, now you are ready to go. You have to get very used to using the Control S as soon as the Control S hotkey to save the file, just like it says here, because Blender can crash at really any time, or really when you're about to do a render, you really want to save right before it because it could crash. So we're going to delete the camera, we're going to delete the light, we're going to delete the cube, and we're kind of in a blank world here. So to navigate the scene, you use your middle mouse click, and you hold the middle mouse, and that lets you rotate. And if you hold shift while you do that, right before you hit middle click, then you can pan. And so that's how you navigate around the scene. The next important key to note is Alt. So if you hold Alt and then middle click with your mouse and drag to a direction very quickly, like a snap, then it will take you to an axis. And that's another one that I really like to use to move around very quickly in the scene. So we're just going to go back to this, positive Z, positive X, positive Y. All right, we're all good. Okay, so first we want to add a cube. We're going to make the shape of the creeper, and to do that, we're going to start with some cubes. So to keep the units in line, we want to make sure that our cube is around a meter by a meter by a meter. And the convention we're going to use is 1 pixel is 1/116th of a meter, because in the game, a block is 16 pixels, and one block corresponds to roughly a meter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to go to this shortcut I have. And then from the shortcut, I'm going to go to the versions for Minecraft 1.19.2 jar, right click and open with WinRAR. When you open it with WinRAR, you can go to the assets folder, and then you can go to Minecraft, textures, entity, and now we can get a hold of our creeper. So I'll copy that into our tutorials and open the creeper file. This is what we're going to use for our UV, and we're going to use it to model the creeper. So one thing that we know about creepers is that their body is a certain width, and the width of their body is going to be, this is a good question. I believe it is 8 pixels. So we're going to go into here, and we're going to make the head. So we're going to go 8 divided by 16 for the dimensions, 8 divided by 16, and 8 divided by 16. And now we have a creeper head. Very nice. Now let's make a body. So we're going to bring that up, and we're going to hit Shift D. Okay. Oh, I did not mention, but to move it up, you hit G. G is your hotkey for move, and then Z will keep you on the Z axis, Y will keep you on the Y axis, X will keep you on the X axis, which you don't have here. Okay, so we're going to hit GZ, and now we have 2 cubes because we did Shift D to duplicate. And so now for the creeper width, it is the correct width. Let's make the Y axis our forward. So then the depth here is going to be 4 divided by 16, and the height is going to be, that is another good question. I believe it's 12. So let's go here, highlight, and yeah, it's 12. So 12 divided by 16. So we're going to hit GZ. We can just kind of connect these up together. Let's go ahead and actually hit backspace. So if you hit backspace on any of these, it'll reset the transforms. It'll take it back to 0, 0. And now I'm going to hit GZ and move it up again. All right, so then this one, we're going to hit backspace just to center it, and then GZ. Okay, so these don't need to be connected initially. We can just leave them disconnected, and then we'll connect them using pixel coordinates just like we just did. Okay, so now we just need the feet. So the feet are 4 by 6. Okay, so Shift D, copy it. All right, so the height is going to be 6/16. The X width is going to be 4/16. And the Y width is also going to be 4/16. And then we hit G, X, put it there, Shift D, GX, just like that. And now we have 2 feet, GY, Shift D. Oh, let me move it to this view. Okay, so we have 1 on each side. Okay, so then we copy these. Ooh, let's see. Is that a cube? Yeah, it's a cube. All right, Shift D, and now we have 4. So G, Y, we'll keep it on the Y axis, and then we can just kind of do, select them all and do G, Y and move it back a little bit. There you go. So that's kind of roughly a creeper shape, right? So now we have to actually apply the texture, and that's going to help us figure out that we did things correctly. So on the top tabs, you have layout, model, sculpting, all these fancy things. You can right click and click delete to keep deleting them, to just keep the UV, because that's really the only layout that you need for what we're doing. And so now that you have the UV, what we want to do is we're going to click open, and we're going to open the creeper, and this will bring up the creeper texture. Okay, so now let's go ahead and select an object. So in this right panel, it's a layout mode, and you can go back to object mode, click on the head, and go to edit mode, and hit Control A or just A. And that will select all the vertices, and you can see where those are on this texture. And you can see that they're not over the head. They're wrong. So it doesn't line up, and also it doesn't show on this model. So if I extend this window, I can click on the material mode, and you can see the material doesn't actually have the texture. So let's add the material to the texture. So we're going to go general, and we're going to add the shading back, because that one we will need for a second. So we're going to create a new material, and this material is going to take a texture, and it's also going to take mapping. So you take mapping node, then you take UV map, then you drag the UV into the vector location, you change this to a texture, and then you go back to your texture that you had here, drag it in, all right, and click the little shield to make sure that it's always gonna be something that you can use, and change it from linear to closest because the pixels are so small. Drag base color into base color, alpha into alpha. Where's that? There we go. All right, so that will put the creeper texture on its head. And then this, we will also apply the material. So let's just apply that material to all of them. Just like this, and that, and that, and that. There you go. So now they all have the UV. Now you can select the UV map here, but it's going to be pretty much the same for all of them anyways. So you can just leave it blank, but you may need to change that eventually. Another thing to do is change it from the settings to alpha hashed, which will allow for transparencies, but you don't need transparencies in this model. So I'm going to change it back to opaque because seeing black is sometimes easier to debug. So we're going to go into UV edit mode, and now we actually see what it's going to look like. So let's go ahead and drag some of these vertices over roughly where we want them to be. So as you can see, it doesn't line up really exactly where you want. So the best thing to do is just to go into the mode that you are trying to do, go onto the face, select just the vertices of that face, and this is the vertices it's meant to be. So we go ahead and go here, we go here, we go here, we go here, and we kind of just have to line things up. And you don't have to get it perfect, just get it close enough, but inside. The key is to get it close, but inside the boundary. So make sure that you give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, if anything. And don't worry if the face is sideways. That is a very easy thing to fix. So we were actually off. We have to go down a pixel. Okay, so that looks good. Now the problem is the face is sideways. So there's a couple ways to fix that. For me, the easiest way is just to rotate the UV. And so we rotated the UV, and now we are comfortably inside those boundaries. And you can see that, hey, we are starting to have a creeper. So let's go ahead and apply that logic to all the faces, and I'm just going to speed it up, skip to it. All right, so we properly UV'd the creeper. Some of the faces may not be perfect, and you can always verify by drawing arrows and testing in game what the model actually does with the UV map. But I think it's good enough for this situation. The next thing to do is to UV map the body and the legs. So the next thing to do is UV map the legs and the body. So I'm on Nova Skin. There's plenty of other sites that can do this, but they're basically just texture editors and viewers, but they definitely help figure out what the UVs are meant to be. So I know exactly what's going on. So we can verify where the positioning of these models are and the different sizes in this, but the controls are different than Nova Skin. In Nova Skin than Blender, but you can see that it's 4 wide and 6 down and 4 across, and you can see the outlines here that show you where the UVs are. So just hop right back into Blender, go into object mode, click on the body, go into edit mode, and now you can just do the same process for all of it. And when you go to do the legs, only do it for one leg since they're duplicated. You can just delete the other legs and then copy that one leg into the 4. So I will actually just do that right now so I don't forget. But yeah, the legs are the same. So you can just delete those and then copy and make a new one from the copy that you've fixed the UV on. All right, so now that we've UV mapped the 3 key components, we just have to copy this one over here, and copy this one over here, and copy this one over here. And now we got the 4 legs. So we're going to put everything together now. So let's go ahead and hit this one. We're going to give these guys a Z of 0. And you can see that they're centered there at the middle. So we're going to actually give them a Z of 3 pixels up, so 3/16. Okay, so we're gonna copy that to all these legs. And then we're going to go ahead and give this an X of 0, but you can see that it's off centered by 2, so 2/16. And we can give the other one negative 2/16. And so we just copy that, so negative 2/16 and 2/16. Very simple. Okay, so then we should see what is the resting position for this. So they're attached at the corners, so we need to have 4 for the width plus 2 for the Y, actually 2 plus 2. So we're going to give it 4/16 and 4/16. There we go. And one of these should be negative 4/16, and this one should be negative 4/16. Okay, so that's how we position that like that. And then this needs to be raised by 4/16. Nope, way more than that. More than that. Let's go with 12/16. That is right. And then this one needs to be 12/16 plus roughly whatever the difference is. So it's going to be like 24/16, and we can just guess and check. So we can go 22/16, and there we go. We landed. Okay, so now everything's aligned. I know that there's a grid snap method, but getting the grid for Minecraft is annoying, so I just guess with fractions. Okay, so we have everything. Then this all is in scale with the game. So if you imported this using a program like OBJMC into Minecraft, it would actually be the proper scale for a creeper, which is great. So now we're basically done with the UV and the modeling. Now we have to go to the animation and posing and armature stuff. So to do that, we're going to create an armature with a single bone, and that will just create a bone in the middle. We go to the pose. To make that armature, you hit Shift A to add something new, and you click armature single bone. Sorry about that. So then we go to the viewport display tab, and we go to in front so that we can see it wherever we are, this new bone we made. And this bone, we're going to name the armature. We'll leave it armature. We're going to go to edit mode, which lets us edit the bone. Click on the bone. Click on the bone tab and name the bone root, because this is just the root of your character. If you move this, it will move the whole character. Let's go into object mode and go ahead and make sure that we 0 this, because we want it to be perfectly centered. Okay, so now what we're going to do is hit Shift A, and it'll create a new bone. And this bone we're going to call body or torso. Okay, and we're going to go G. We're going to give it 0 on the X and Y, and then we're going to hit GZ and just move it up. Click on the circle at the top, do GZ, then keep your cursor on the circle and do EZ, and that will extrude a new bone. So this will allow us to bend the creeper a little bit. The more bones you have, the more you can bend it, or the more degrees of motion you have, but 2 is probably good enough. So then from this one, we're going to hit EZ again, and this will create a head bone, and we're just going to have 1 for the head. You can make the armature as complicated as you want. I'm doing it pretty simple. So we're just going to have this one called head. Then you're going to go ahead and hit Shift D at the head, drag this down, go to the Relations tab, and go ahead and name this relation torso, and call this foot.r, footf.r, because it's the front foot. And then make the parent actually, yeah, making the parent the torso is probably fine. But you can also make the parent the root here. So we're going to rotate it just approximately, and we're going to hit S to scale it. And so R to rotate, S to scale, and there it is. And now we're just going to hit GX and move it to kind of the center there. It doesn't have to be perfect, really. Then you hit Shift D from there, and then GX, move it to kind of the center. And this one is going to be footf.L. Okay, and then highlight both these bones and hit Shift D, G, Y, and then you'll move it back to the back. And these will be foot B.L. And the convention is that the left is the L side, and left and right convention is usually based on the character's view. So not the view of you looking at the character, but you can come up with any convention you want. Okay, so that made the armature. And that's pretty much it. So now what we do is you go into object mode, select the armature, select every single object. Well, first select every single object here besides the armature. Okay. Then select the armature. This is me holding shift and clicking, by the way. And then I go to and then I right click and go to parents, then with automatic weights. And that'll move all of the parts into the armature. And so when I click pose mode, now when I turn this, it should do something. It's not going, it might be buggy. You can see that there, it's kind of weird, right? But it kind of works, right? And you can just go through and make sure that all of it works just fine. And we're going to clean up some of it, but the feet all work perfectly. So the feet are good. The body is just a little weird. So when I turn the torso, it turns everything. When I turn this torso, it turns more than just the top half. And the reason for that is that we didn't create subdivisions inside of our mesh. So it wasn't able to really make any good decisions in terms of bending. So what we're going to do is hit Control Z a whole bunch of times until they're unparented. And we're going to take a look at this. So let's say we wanted to create a bend. Well, you see, the problem is it can't bend much. There's only 4 vertices. There's no bend that can be made here. So to allow it to make a bend, click X-ray, go into edit mode, select all the vertices of the 3D model, right click and click subdivide. Now you have a little bit more vertices to bend, and there's all kinds of fancy stuff that goes into how you should subdivide and the best shapes to use to get the bends you want, but I'm just going to subdivide twice for the sake of example. And then we'll go ahead and come back here and we'll select everything again, and we'll do the automatic weight paint again and see how that turns out. So we're going to go into pose mode, and you can see now it actually can bend at the top. Very nice. So we do get a bend. So we can just kind of whoop, and then we can kind of hit R and rotate the head a little bit. And then we can pose the little legs a little bit, which you can add some bend to the legs too if you wanted, but that's okay. And now we have Creeper running at you. Okay, so that's how to do armatures. Just a quick crash course on armatures. I don't need this. I don't even know what that is. So crash course on armatures. Now let's go ahead and go into object mode, and let's go with an animation. So to make animations, it's actually very easy as well. So I like to set up a little thing. So I have playback. So let's go ahead and go into dope sheet, go into action editor, click new to make a new animation or action. Name this something like run. Okay. And go ahead and click the shield to protect it. Now, when you go back into timeline, you can edit this. So we're going to hit Control A, and I am going to keep it in one position. This will be a bad animation. I'm just showing you how to do it. So I'm going to hit I, and we're going to go location and rotation. And if you go into keying, you can make it so any key will always be location and rotation. So anytime you hit I, it'll just automatically do location or rotation, which is nice. So these are all of your positions. These are your keyframes. So what you do is you can click the record button, or you can leave the record button off. I like having the record button on and just fast forwarding to a time and let's set the end time to 30. So after 10 frames, it will do something else. And what will it do? So now we can make it do something else. So we can go, so we will go like this, just the opposite, right? The opposite position for the legs. Using R and just rotating the legs. And we can give it a little bit of a bend forward. Okay, so we can do this. And that kind of just does that. Click here, hit A, that will select all the bones. Now we have all the bones selected. And then we can click on the 0 key, hit Control C, hit Control V, and now it'll copy all the bones. So we will go between the 2 different frames we made. There you go. And now to speed it up, we can just change this to like 19. And now it'll create a loop. Okay. And then what we can do is we can move all these a little closer together to about half a second and change this to 9. And there you go. Now you have a little creeper running. So that's all that I want to cover, the very basics of how to animate and how to create a model, how to create an armature, how to animate that model. And then I have a separate video on how to import this into OBJMC. If you want to follow that, I will have a download for this Blender file in the description and a link to my OBJMC post, which has a player model, which is a lot more complicated and more useful. Anyways, guys, if you thought that was a good tutorial and want to see more similar things, let me know in the comments. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.